question about my leadership journey and how I've remained authentic. It's been difficult, I think, is the honest answer. And it's also changed, I think, is the honest answer. I think, you know, it goes back to you really need to know yourself, who you are, in order to be authentic. And actually taking that time, going through those roles and that journey has allowed me to understand a lot more about myself through both, you know, the highs and the lows.
Thank you.
Well, I certainly didn't go to Cambridge. I didn't go anywhere. I'm an apprentice, so I flunked school pretty spectacularly, but I had a good time. And I also got rejected for several jobs because I was applying to places that I just weren't qualified to do. So I ended up in a very small accounting practice, actually. So even though I didn't go to Cambridge, I did go into finance. And with a group of people who are very different to me. I was literally a working class boy from a street in the centre of Worcester where everybody went into factories. And I just happened to be good at math and I wanted to do something different. I certainly didn't want to spend 50 years of my life in a factory. So I went into a very, very different environment. And in a sense, outside of my comfort zone, this was a very white, middle-class society who, when I asked for a cup of tea and I asked for 2 sugars, they go, you know, it was different. But just as Simone said, most of my early career and even today is spawned by just accepting you learn by experiences. And experience can be this, right? And I'm sure I'll walk away from this saying, you didn't say, did you, right? So just accepting, right? You kind of are, you find what you are, and that never changes. That does, I think, even for somebody who's 63, that changes, right? That kind of, you keep trying to be a better version of yourself. And I don't think that will ever change. So what's authentic for me? Well, I'm a prototype, right? And somebody in time, hopefully, I'll develop into a better prototype model as I go forward. That's my ambition.
Did you say 63?
I'm 2 months.
So my journey into leadership began with me becoming a lawyer. And I would say I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer from the age of 13. I always believed in myself. I always knew it was possible, and I'm a strong believer in anyone can be whatever they want to be, as long as you put the work into it. I also believe, and my grandma taught me from a very young age, never expect anything to be handed to you, right? So take advantage of opportunities, but create opportunities for yourself. I went to secondary school in the Caribbean. I then came back to the UK in order to do my A-levels, university, went to law school. At law school, I decided to do what most people didn't. I got pregnant, right? And one of my tutors said, oh dear, but you'll be fine. I copped out of telling my dad I was pregnant, and I got my stepmother to do it instead. But you know what? Everything was fine because, again, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I knew that being pregnant wouldn't stop me from being a lawyer. So I completed my exams heavily pregnant. I got my practicing certificate. And then once I had my son, I went out into the world of work. But there was a challenge, right? At that time, in order to be a solicitor, you needed to do a training contract. So that's 2 years of training. For every 1 vacancy, there are hundreds of applicants. Statistics shows that white middle-class males tend to succeed. But again, did that determine? No, it didn't. Because again, my grandmother always told me, you can do whatever you want to be. So I grew up with that mindset. So when people used to say, oh, well, it's really hard, why don't you consider something else? That was not even an option to me. I started working in a really small firm in Bristol, forming companies, so essentially doing paralegal work. They were not registered to provide training contracts, but I thought there's some really good solicitors here. And if I were to do a training contract, I would get invaluable experience that would make me a really good lawyer, because I didn't want to just be any lawyer. I wanted to be good, right? Watched a lot of TV, mainly American courtrooms, and actually the reality is very different. So no one stands up saying, objection, Your Honor. and all of that. But I then did some research, right, into the benefits for a firm to do training contracts, what they must do in order to register as a provider, and then I pitched to the board, right, at that firm as to why they should do it, and most importantly, why they should choose me. And after several attempts, they agreed, more so because I actually completed the application form for them, so all they had to do was literally sign on the dotted line and pay the fee. But it worked, and that's how I became a trainee in that firm. And then I had the opportunity to mold my training exactly how I wanted it to be, so that I got the experience that I needed. And it didn't just pave the way for me, but also it paved the way for other people that became trainees to this day in that firm. JLR was a client, and I'd always been interested in working at JLR or work with JLR, and I did work for JLR in private practice. An opportunity came for secondment. I loved it so much. I lasted 6 months back in private practice. An opportunity came again to apply for a permanent role at JLR, and I snapped it, right? And it was to be a corporate lawyer. So, being at JLR, I thought again, I focus on self-development, right? So I don't look at organizational hierarchy and think I must be a certain grade at a certain time. Am I running out of time?
No, when I get on.
I look at self-development, right? So I do a lot of reflection. How do I make me a better me? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How do I develop upon my weaknesses? And what are the opportunities for me to add value in the organization? And by taking that approach, it has paid off because I've been at JLR now for 5 years and I've had 2 promotions. The first was to be head of legal for the corporate legal team and to establish a team of corporate lawyers. Everyone's looking at the spider. Is that a good sign? Sign of fortune, see? And my most recent role is the role that I'm currently doing now. And that is leading a team of lawyers who provide support, so lawyers, company secretarial advisors and legal administrators who provide support to JLR on corporate procurement, governance and other matters. And I absolutely love it. So what I would say is my journey has been interesting, right? It's not been the traditional route to qualification, but I made it, and it was, for me, it was quite natural. I believed in myself and I focused my efforts on ensuring that I realize my dreams, and I think that everyone can also do the same.
It's hard to follow this. I can counter with the fact that I have 4 daughters. So, yes, which are obviously something that makes me, very proud, and it all starts probably and ends with the family. And I'm originally from Portugal, Lisbon, born and raised there. I started working for Unilever when I'm 1 in 4, and my brother told me, like, why are you selling soaps and shampoos when you could potentially go to finance, which was a bit more highly regarded, right? But at that time I said, listen, who cares? I love working, because I did an internship. I worked while I studied, and I really love Unilever. And I did an internship in finance that I was not so keen. Little I knew back then that I would deal with finance a lot nowadays, and I love it. But listen, I've been living in Paris, France, 3 years, Brazil, 4, US, 10, and the last 2, almost 2.5 in the UK. It has been, when you are living in countries that you are not that familiar, it's easier for you to really pay attention and really seek to understand before you try to be understood. So it's something that I truly believe is very important. Paying attention, listening. The reason why we have 2 years and a month is we should hear more and try to pay more attention to the surroundings. And that's pretty much what shaped my leadership. Really always be mindful of what others are keen to tell you, and create an environment that people feel kind of a safe place to be what they are, right? So that's what I would like to share as a starting